What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, we're looking at the watch list ahead of Game Week 13. So we're going to go through some players that have maybe caught the eye, have been doing well, got good fixtures coming up, or maybe I just need them to be an enabler for future transfers as well. So if you do enjoy it, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here, and let's jump into it. Okay, so we'll start off with Josh King. There's quite a few cheap forwards in this video. Remember, this is my watch list for my team. So I am looking at possibly bringing in a cheaper forward soon to kind of enable moves elsewhere, possibly for Reece James, possibly for Jota. I'm a little bit undecided about exactly how I'm going to kind of structure those transfers, but at some point I'm probably going to need a cheap forward, and a lot of other people might do as well, because if you're not already on the 4 and possibly even 5 big defenders at the back, so a lot of people are now looking at going 5 at the back, then you're a little bit behind, and getting some, you don't really necessarily want to go for like Brownhill and Davis and Lacardi or whatever up front and just have no bench. So these players that are nice and cheap are probably the better way to do it. So if one of your defenders does miss out, you've got like a cheap forward or maybe even a cheap midfielder to come on as well. Now this isn't completely knee-jerk based off the Man United game, the fact he scored. I mentioned him on the deadline stream, that how I might look to bring him in soon. Now, the fixtures aren't short-term fantastic, right? Leicester away is not that bad, given how they've played so far this season. It's not necessarily a fixture that I would target, but it's not that bad. But Chelsea and Man City is really tough. But again, I think you have to, if you're going to bring in a player like this, you have to just accept them for what they are. They are an enabler to get the rest of your squad looking better. So even if I had to play him against Chelsea or Man City, I probably wouldn't be that annoyed about having to do it. I'd love to have the perfect squad, but I just don't have the setup or the team value to do it right now. So Josh King's definitely a consideration. Plus, from kind of game week 16 onwards, the fixtures are quite good over Christmas. I think he does look pretty nailed. Like if I just bring him up here so far, like he's started the last 4 matches. He's started more often than not for Watford, but the last 4 matches in particular, he started, got 4 goals in that time as well. And over Christmas, I just don't think Watford are going to be able to rotate too much, right? They're in a relegation battle. They don't want to get relegated. They're going to have to play the first 11 as much as they possibly can. So he's probably going to be nailed. And also, the other thing that I've got in the back of my mind is Sarr missed 2 penalties against Man United. Obviously, he took the first one, then got to take another one. I just wonder if King might be on penalties now. It's not guaranteed, and for anyone that played a lot of seasons ago, right, you remember that game against, he was playing for Bournemouth. I can't remember who he was playing against actually. Maybe it was Everton. I could be wrong on that, but he missed the penalty and I was like, oh god, this is a nightmare. And then he went and scored like 4 goals in the same game. Probably wasn't against Everton, but I can't remember who it was for. But yeah, so whether or not he'll be on penalties, I don't know. But that kind of penalty miss stuck out in my mind. But he could be now that Sarr's missed 2. We don't know that for sure. But for 5.6 million, pretty nailed as an enabler, possibly with penalties. He's definitely on the radar. And also his numbers are just really good so far. 0.54 expected goals per 90, 0.23. Like his Man United goal was kind of front and centre in the box, exactly where you want him to be. And so, yeah, it's looking good. Now, I'm not expecting those numbers to hold. I'm sure they'll go down. But his baseline expected data over like quite a few seasons now playing in the Premier League isn't that bad at all, especially for 5.6 million. So just remember, this is an enabler. I'm not expecting him to come in and score more than Salah, Jota, Kane, Son, etc. But for 5.6 million, like if you want to structure your side, or if I want to structure my side where I want a cheaper forward rather than a cheaper midfielder, then he could be the one. Okay, look, maybe it's time to start taking Bernardo Silva a little bit more seriously, right? He has started, apart from the first game of the season, he's started every single game so far this year. And we know that Pep rotates, right? We know all about Pep roulette. But sometimes there are players that when they're in, they're just in the team, right? And they do get a long stretch of games. The biggest worry for me always is, are you going to jump on at the wrong time? Is this run of games or run of starts going to stop, right? But he started 11 of the first 12. Foden started 8 of the last 8. Cancelo started 12. He started every single game so far this season, basically. So there are some players like that. And his returns are pretty good, right? If we look at his kind of recent returns, he's done quite well. And also, he is the top scoring midfielder, I think. Yeah, so he's actually ahead of Foden. But obviously, a lot of that is down to the amount of starts he's had. So he's had 6 returns so far in 11 games. So more than one every other game, which is pretty good. It's just a question about whether he's going to keep starting. Obviously, De Bruyne is out at the moment. When they've got everyone fit, there is a chance of him being rotated. But I do think he's been I think he's probably been the best Man City player so far this season, right? He has just been that good. My biggest issue is, right, the numbers are never that good, and they weren't that good last season. I ignored him, and he went on a little bit of a run of getting goals and assists. And obviously, being in a Man City side, you're always going to be, always have the potential of getting returns, and playing kind of, or starting every single game really helps too. But his expected goals per 90, 0.21, pretty low. His expected assists per 90, 0.14. That's also pretty low. Like, together, 0.35 is not bad, but for a Man City player, you would expect a little bit more. And I know what a lot of people will say, just forget about stats, they don't mean everything. Look at the eye test. But when I watch him, I don't think he gets that close to goal that often. Like, whoever plays in central midfield for City does sometimes have a tendency to get forward. We especially see it with Gundogan, right? He does make those runs in behind, does get into the box. But I just don't see it that often with Bernardo Silva. I just think if I'm going to take up a Man City spot, I think I'm always going to probably side with Foden at the moment anyway, because he is also starting more often. The only problem is, we saw, right, he came off a bit early because probably he is that important to Man City that once the game was won, Pep wanted him off ready for the PSG game. So annoyingly, he came off before 60 minutes. I don't know. Part of me thinks I'm already on Foden. Do I really want to add another Man City midfielder who may also get rotated at some point? Or is it worth just ignoring Man City altogether? It's hard. We always want to jump on Man City players because we know how explosive they can be. And we know, even forgetting explosiveness, we know they can just tick over. But with Bernardo Silva, I just don't see it. Let me know if you think differently in the comments below. Right? Am I wrong? Does he get in and around the box enough? Is he creating enough chances? I don't necessarily see it, and the numbers don't really back up any different either. But those fixtures are so good. After the West Ham game, which will be difficult enough, the next 5 are pretty solid. I know there's like new manager bounce for Newcastle, but they still conceded a bunch of goals. New manager bounce for Ranieri. They've also got to play Steven Gerrard's Villa as well. So there's a lot of new managers in that run, but this is Man City. We know how good they are. The run is good. The price is good at 7.2 million. Just, is there going to be enough returns? I just don't know. I just don't think it's necessarily going to continue. Okay, so another cheap striker, this time Poch. Very similarly priced to Josh King, but he is 0.2 million more expensive. That might actually be the clincher for my team, because I am just scraping the barrel with money that much at the moment. So 5.8 million. I think the couple of things I like about Poch maybe versus some of the others, definitely on penalties. Obviously, he's completely nailed on penalties, and also the next couple of games are a little bit better than, like, say, Watford's, right? We've got Leicester, and then they've got to play Chelsea and Man City next too. So Wolves at home, Newcastle away are not too bad, right? I don't mind having to play him in those fixtures, but then his fixtures get quite bad. So it all depends on how often I need to play these players and when I need to play them. Like, maybe just taking the fixtures on the chin for Josh King and then having better fixtures over Christmas might be better. My biggest concern is just Norwich. Like, it's not that I think Watford are necessarily that good either. I just think maybe they got a little bit more about them. Maybe subconsciously it's a little bit of bias because they've just put 4 goals past Man United. But I just do really worry for Norwich. Like, I know they beat Southampton, but I mean, what was Alex McCarthy doing? He should have saved both goals. Like, the second one in particular was just awful. Pukki took it, like, he got the header, but at the near post, McCarthy should have saved it. And he didn't have too many other chances. And I think maybe Norwich are a little bit lucky to win that game. And I just think going forward, like, his underlying numbers so far this season are awful. Pukki's, like, they are that bad. Again, he's got like a higher baseline from a previous season, but that was 2 years ago. Different times now. 0.17 expected goals. Is just really bad. Like, will those numbers improve? I'm sure they will. But after Wolves at home, Newcastle away, like Spurs, Man United, West Ham away, that's going to be difficult. Even Aston Villa, who aren't a defence I necessarily think are that good over the last couple of seasons. I think Martinez has definitely helped them out quite a bit. Like, we've already seen, like, they did pretty well against Brighton. Gerrard and his coaching staff are going to get them playing differently. They're going to try and press a bit more. They're going to be more difficult to break down. I just don't think it's a good run of fixtures at all. And at the end of the day, it is just Norwich. Like, I know I've got Armin Bamadelli, but he is just a massive enabler at 3.9. I don't know. Again, Norwich and Watford fans, let me know what you think in the comments below. But I just think Watford maybe, like with Sarr in there, it's just a little bit of quality. I just don't know where that's coming for Norwich. Maybe that's a little bit harsh. But I just don't see. I think if I had to bet now on who's going to score more goals between now and the end of the season, I would put my money on Watford, and Josh King is a little bit cheaper. The only thing that's really siding me towards Pukki is the penalty situation and the fact that the next 2 fixtures are good. Otherwise, I can't really make a good case for why I would go for him over Josh King. But let me know below if you think that's wrong and why. Why not? Let's do another cheap striker, right? This time we're going to talk about Christian Benteke. Now, Poch is someone you know I considered, and Josh King is someone I considered before the deadline. This one is a little bit knee-jerky. He's just scored 2 goals against Burnley. My biggest issue with Crystal Palace is not knowing who's completely nailed, and I said this pre-deadline, that I would probably opt for Edouard over Benteke because he seems to be a guaranteed starter. Then he didn't start the last game, and Benteke did. So I don't know week to week. Maybe Vieira is just rotating him a little bit. Maybe it's due to opposition. Who's definitely going to start? But I mean, his numbers are pretty good so far. 0.4 expected goals per 90 is pretty nice. And we know Benteke at times in the Premier League just has been a decent player, right? He is a threat. The fixtures are good. I would like to have a Crystal Palace player in my team because I think they have been quite impressive so far, and they now have the fixtures as well. And obviously Benteke is a cheap price. But I'm looking at this. So he didn't play the Man City game. Maybe that is just because it's Man City, right? Maybe Vieira had a plan, didn't want to play him there, wanted to play maybe more mobile players. I don't know. Also didn't play against Leicester or Brighton, but has played every other game so far, apart from Chelsea on the opening day. Again, maybe that's because it was Chelsea, right? Maybe there's a pattern here. But then he played against Liverpool. So I'm not quite sure. And then you look at Edouard. Even though he'd been moved to the left, he seemed to have been starting every single game since game week 6. And now suddenly he doesn't start. So next week, I'm just not sure. I mean, it's hard. It's probably hard to drop Benteke when he's scoring goals like that. And obviously we can see here, like the fixtures are decent. Like he'll do a good job against a lot of these. Leeds obviously bad in the air. Benteke not too bad from set pieces perhaps. But I don't know. Is it worth spending 6.3 million? I mean, again, that doesn't sound like a lot of money. And part of the problem for my team is obviously I've got Harry Kane, so he's taken up a lot of budget. And in a few game weeks' time, once the good fixtures for Spurs are over, maybe I'll take him out and start spreading the money around, so it won't be such an issue. But Benteke is not 0.7 million more than Josh King. So again, is he a better option? He definitely has better fixtures. He's definitely playing for a better team, I would say. So far from what we've seen, Crystal Palace do look a level above Norwich for sure and a level above Watford, but maybe Ranieri will continue to turn it around. So it's difficult to say. The only thing that really puts me off Benteke is how nailed is he. Again, maybe that doesn't matter if I've got a good squad, but I don't really have the bench to be getting too many more players that are possible minutes risk. So it's very encouraging that he started 4 of the last 5 and he has scored 4 goals in that time. But I just worry about the odd benching. Is it going to happen? Could he be dropped right now? Again, Crystal Palace fans, help me out. Let me know in the comments below. Because if not, he's a pretty nice differential with not too many fixtures that I would worry about coming in the next 6 over Christmas. Okay, look, any kind of player in the game could be rotated for 1 game over Christmas. But I'm more worried about getting rotated when it's not kind of Christmas time and stuff like that. So I guess let me know below. I think in isolation, if all 3 of these forwards I've considered, like Poch, Josh King and Benteke, were going to start every single week, then Benteke's probably the one I would want because of the team he plays for. But I think if there's any risk that he's going to miss minutes from time to time, then I think Josh King's the one right now. Poch, wish I got him in this week, obviously, because he got his goal. I just think he probably is the worst one of the 3. Although guaranteed penalties, and Norwich and he cannot keep playing as bad as they have been, surely. Like, it's got to be some improvement. Maybe not enough to not be relegated, but some improvement. It's difficult. Lots of cheap strikers. Who would you go for? Let me know in the comments below. There we go. That's my watch list for this week. It probably is a little bit slim pickings. Obviously, we'll talk about a few more players on the transfer tips video tomorrow. But, I mean, players like Reece James is pretty obvious now. I had him on the watch list a few weeks ago. I probably do need to find a way to get him in soon. Will it be this week? I don't know. I'm going to talk about it in the team selection video. But he and Jota are kind of firmly on my, these are the players that I really want. The players in this video, especially Bernardo Silva, I think I've got to start taking a little bit more seriously. And obviously, I probably will need a cheap enabler to get Jota and Reece James, hence the players were on this one. So let me know what you think. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you are new around here as well. And I'll be back tomorrow with some transfer tips.